Welcome to the Enlightened Misfits podcast, a space for spiritual entrepreneurs who refuse to settle for anything less than their purpose. I am your host, Lauren Perlingi. After surviving a near-death experience and being declared gone for 3 minutes, I woke up with a mission to help women turn self-sabotage into self-compassion and fear into fuel. Here, we're going to dive into raw conversations, practical tools, and inspiring stories designed to help you break free from old patterns, claim your voice, and build a business that lights up your soul. If you've ever felt like you don't fit the mold, you're in the right place. This is where misfits rise into their power. Welcome back to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. I am your host, Lauren Perlingi, the intuitive human design business guide, trauma-informed healer, and the creator of the 90-second method, which is all about noticing what happens in your nervous system, neutralizing your emotional charge, and re-choosing from truth. And today, I'm super excited to have this conversation because we're going to be talking all things human design. You know me. And I have Cat here with us. So we're going to dive into a conversation that some of you already know about that is going to be very powerful, validating, and honest. So welcome, Kat. So happy to have you here with us today.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Cat Fitzgerald. I am a musician, I'm a human design reader. I really am kind of a jack of all trades. I've been studying human design for more than 10 years at this point, and actually came to it via a projector friend of mine who
Oh,
knew just enough about human design to know that I'm a manifester and not to like tell me to do it, right? But, she kept being like, hey, I think you'd be really into this. I think you'd be into this. And on time three, I like pulled up the chart and I got taken in by the G Center, actually. I'd been an astrologer before then, for about a year and a half. So I was
yeah.
really familiar with astrology, and my first look at the human design chart, I was like, what in the hell am I looking at? Like, I don't know, whatever. But learning about actually the G Center and identity and authenticity pulled me in, and I have been in ever since.
And I love that because that's a huge topic, especially when we're recording this in February, that where we all are collectively, like with this identity shift and all the shit that's happening in the world, of like what that identity is, or like we thought we were this, and then it's like we're really that, or like uncovering that. So, like, in your opinion, especially like with most common people, or that what you've seen with, your own clients, like what is the confusion between that conditioning of the identity and like the big tells that, like, I'll just say the big tells that human design charts and people's human design charts like live from, survival versus like their actual self.
Sure, yeah. Okay, well, what makes it confusing is that conditioning is not something that's like just a mental part of your journey. And I
Yeah.
mean, even if it was, that would already be difficult enough to overcome. But conditioning lives in the mind, in the body, in the spirit, to the point of where it is something that feels like it must be true to who you are. So when we're like embarking on that journey of unmasking and figuring out, oh, actually, who the hell am I? At first, all of these things that we're doing just unconsciously, it's like, oh, yeah, of course, this is who I am. But when you start digging into the chart, and like, for example, I'll look at mine and I see, oh, okay, I have a fully open sacral center. When I was in my youth, I used to work 3 jobs and not bat an eye. Not, I just thought, yeah, I have high energy. I'm always on the go. I never run out of energy. And I started to notice as I'm digging through my human design chart and trying to understand why I'm tired all the time, that it was like my actual nature attempting to break through and be like, hi, you are actually hurting yourself with the way you're living. Like
Yeah.
noticing
And
these moments where your body is giving you resistance, which isn't to say that you should never encounter resistance. Some amount of friction is natural and normal in the human life. It's part of the human experience. But if over and over again you're running into a brick wall about something, that's like a little flag from the universe to be like, hi, maybe you should look at this?
yeah. And it's interesting that you say that about working like 3 jobs. Obviously, me being a projector, I also have an open It's undefined. I have some activations, but um, now yours is completely open. So it's like, but I remember that too. Like even up until I kind of really dove into what is all of this. I mean, I've probably been doing this, what, I want to say like 7 years now, 7, 8 years, specifically like really actually trying to align to my human design more like I'm going to be honest, like 5 years. Like I kind of like I knew about it. I would like, oh, I'm going to try it. And then it's like, no, you're going to really try it. You're going to actually do it. Like the third time that I looked at it. But I remember I always was go, 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 go. And
Mhm.
then now I'm like, like sometimes I literally could just get up, take my daughter to school, like not do much, get a shower, like go back and pick her up. And I'm like, I'm exhausted. Like, why am I so tired? And I'm like, oh, it's because like my nervous system is calm and I'm not forcing, I'm not constantly always going, or constantly like I can't sit with myself. I can't do that. So I feel like that is a lot of like the masks that all of us wear. So like when you first uh realized that you were like masking, like what role did human design play into like helping you see that version of you that you were like living versus what you actually were not?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, the undefined G center is what pulled me in and made me be like, oh, let me take a look at this. And I have an undefined G center, and I think for those of us that do, it can be kind of confusing to approach authenticity because the moment we get super fixated on, oh, this is who I am now, or like even like existential crisis level of like, oh my God, where am I supposed to be going in life? Like that's when we're in the not self. But that doesn't mean that there is not an explorative process that goes on because it just like gave me this permission slip that this way I'd been operating of trying on people unconsciously, just like trying on their mannerisms, their style, their whatever it was
Yeah.
not me being disingenuous, which was like a fear that I had. Like I was like, oh God, am I just like copying everybody? Do I even have a personality? Like that kind of shit. But gave me a permission slip that being very mutable is just like who I'm here to be. And it's like through that process of exploration, trying things on and feeling into what doesn't fit, that I become more and more wise about authenticity because I'm like going through it like that. So that was like the first thing that kind of opened the door for me.
Yeah, and I love that you talk about authenticity because I feel like that's also like a buzzword. Everybody wants to be like authentic. And I'm like, does anybody really even know what that means? Like, do you guys know what does that mean for you? Like, I can take it back to like my incarnation cross is, about masks. It's like I'm really good, or I was really good at putting those masks on, kind of like how you just described. Of like, I got to be this person, I got to put this, I got to do this, I got to do this. And then it's like, that's how where I learned how to be authentic of like, oh, this is exactly where I'm going, like this is exactly where I need to be. And like from that place, I mean, now I have a defined G center, but I feel like from that place, if you are looking at your chart and you're listening and you're like, oh, wait a second, I have a undefined or open, and people don't know what that means, then it just means it's not colored in.
Mhm.
And that's kind of like they could have this very similar experience that you have or had or having, I should say. And I think
Yeah.
that's a really important part, especially like what collectively like we're going through too, like current moment energy rise too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So, like kind of moving towards like your journey on through all of this? Like, how would you say that like, the way that you see like trauma and specific, people's abilities to follow like their, strategy and authority?
Yeah. Yes. This is like a big focus of my work. I very much personally focus on trauma work and with my clients as well. And it's just like it can be kind of a convoluted thing because when you experience trauma, you change. Your brain changes. That's scientifically proven. So
Yeah.
I always like to caution people and say that like your aim on your unmasking journey, on your search for yourself is not to erase everything that you currently are, to force those things out, because that's going to do more harm than good, really. For me, it's more like how can you allow yourself to express in a way that feels free, whatever that means for you in that moment. And it's knowing that it's going to change as you can anchor more and more deeply into your own safety, you
Right.
know? And like safety can start with like the tiniest of things. Like I had a client who had an open throat, who at one point she remembered in her childhood she used to sing, she used to like, be very vocally expressive, but she had gotten to this place where she like almost never spoke. She would wait until someone engaged with her first, like really kind of in the shadow of that. And for her, the first step into self-expression was literally to record to her own self on her phone, just to start that vocalization process. It doesn't always have to be these really huge acts of like, now I'm going to be brave and do this thing. It can be, but it's no less valuable if it's like a small in the direction you want to be in.
Right. Yeah. And I think that that's really powerful, especially when, you have these people, or like following, oh, I need help following my strategy. People that like are, familiar with, human design. And it's like, I feel like when I get on the podcast, people have said to me lately, well, can you talk more about human design? Because like I know my human design, I know my type, I know my strategy, but like how do I apply it to my life? Obviously, of course I can help. They could work with me, but it's like maybe they just want to kind of figure it out like their own way. Like I self-taught myself. I don't claim to be a certified reader. I just self-taught myself, which I think is the best way because have had experiences where people were certified and they're reading from the book. And I'm like, I have the textbook. I can read it. I
No,
like
they
to hear,
weren't. Oh
yes,
my God.
yeah. And I'm like, and I wanted to see because I've heard that before. And I'm like, I don't believe you guys. I want to know, like, because there is some, you do need to have some level of not telling somebody that is an emotional authority, like making quick decisions, like, oh my
Mhm.
God, or like this is connected to this. If the root they have, like, you need to know the logistics of that because you're going to be directing them wrong. I do understand that, which is why I was like, I need to really read the textbook and teach myself this. So I'm not giving that information wrongly that I would be harming people, especially when I'm too working with people with trauma because, that especially when it comes to like genetic trauma or something like that. It could really, if they have a genetic trauma of shame or something, or, and you're telling them to do like, it's like, whoa, you got to be aware of that stuff. Like, that's really super important. But yeah, I did have an experience a couple years ago with a certified reader. I paid for and I was like, I just like the way that I was like, I know a lot about human design. However, I wanted to experience it so I can speak from that experience. And I was like, they're reading the textbook. I didn't say that to her, but I was like, oh my God, is this what it feels like to, like I'm not saying that don't kill me here, but like I don't say
Mhm.
that I'm not saying every certified reader it does that, but it's kind of like people that do it from their own experience. They tie it into a huge story and how they can give that experience, which it seems like that's, from what I know of your work, that's exactly what you do.
Yeah, and I'm not certified, just so we all know. I'm self-study. I don't know. I could never afford to go the certification path, so it is what it is. And I think self-study is completely valid. So,
Yeah, and I think that that's important too. Um, the one, and I'm sure she does I'm not going to say her last name right, but and I can't believe I don't even know her last name, but it's Donna. She's the shadow. She made the ch shadow chart. Her last name starts with
oh,
a Y.
sure.
Yeah. So she was on the podcast too, and I was asking her all this stuff. And when I had said this to her, she goes, "She's self-study." And
Hmm.
I was like, and the way that she articulates in all of that and has created all of that. And I was like, and I'm one that doesn't believe in certifications. Of course, if you're calling yourself a doctor, you need to be certified, but that's not what
Hmm.
we're talking about.
Right.
right?
Please go to school if you're a doctor.
Yeah, like please don't say yes, call me a doctor and have no doctorates, like
Mm,
or whatever, you know, but I feel like that needs to be said too, because I've had people ask me, am I certified? And I'm like, nope. And I never will claim to be certified, but it's all intuitive for me.
mhm,
And I bet you I can give you a better reading than them. Most of us out here that are just self-study, like all of us, I feel like that we use it as the experience that I think is really, really important through the ability to like use human design as a system that we kind of uncovered ourselves to kind of work through our trauma and nervous system work and all of that.
mhm. You
Yeah.
mentioned, practical application of strategy and authority. And I do think that's useful. But when I chat with people newer to human design, I always try to direct them to start with the nine centers first, because I
Okay.
think that's like a really grounded way to approach the chart because it allows you to become aware of the gifts that you're already carrying. And it allows you to
Okay.
know where your sensitive spots are, which we're always working in relationship with other people,
Right.
always.
Right.
And it really helps us move through the world if we know where we're more likely to be like, ouch, like here, I might react in this way. Like when I read about the undefined heart center and how that ties into self-worth and how that can like make you undercharge in business and shit. I was like, oh my God, there I am. There she is, ladies and gentlemen. But it just like helped me have a very clear awareness and almost like a map of the things that I'm wanting to try to nourish and try to pour my healing energy into, not necessarily to fix, but to tend to be like, okay, this is where I might run into some trouble. And also really empowering too to like know, like having a defined throat, for example, that the way that the frequency of my voice is designed to impact others was really validating for me as someone who's been a singer all my life. It's like something I already felt, but to have it right there on paper, I was like, see, there it is, like that kind of shit. And I feel like as you work on those things, strategy and authority often, especially the strategy piece, starts to come online almost naturally. As I gained more confidence in myself, I naturally initiated more. You know, it's not
Right.
something that I had to mentally apply that much. It's good to like be aware of it, but I don't feel like people need to spend too much time intentionally being like, okay, and now I'm going to wait for the invitation, and now I'm going to do it, like
Yeah.
see what you naturally want to do. Let your body move when it wants to move because it knows more than we do.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, thank you for highlighting that because there has been some times where if I would have known your wisdom of where do I need, like, where, because I sometimes feel like if you start with the energy, like centers, and if they're not versed with chakras or they don't understand it, I feel like sometimes that can get overwhelming. But if somebody that is like, let's start here, I think that that would be a really easy place to start, especially, from what you just described too, because I didn't really understand my authority, like my, waiting for the invitation. Like, what does that mean? And I realized like each energy type is about waiting, like wait. But then it's like, what spectrum are you waiting? Are you gonna wait and never initiate? Or are you gonna wait and never invite? Like that whole I've noticed also, it's like I'm waiting for the invitation and most projectors that I work with, they use that as like an excuse. And it's like, no, 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 no. You're not
Nice little
allowed to use
self-sabotage.
that. Yes. And I'm
Hmm.
like, and I immediately see it because I'm like, I used to do that. And I know that's coming up, right? Like you said, self-sabotage because I used to do it. So I can pick that out, of like, oh, I
Yeah.
have to wait for the invitation. I was like, no, you don't. If they're on your social media, if you have your own social media platform, what invitation are you asking for?
Right, it's your page.
Yeah. So when I asked that question, they're just like, and I was like, and I understand it could be just a form of your own self-sabotage, but like
Mhm.
awareness around that piece is like, oh, I don't have to invite my followers to, no, they can unsubscribe, they can unfollow, like if you have one person, you can speak
Hmm.
to that one person. And I think that that
Yep.
is really powerful coming from a projector. And also projectors, I've also noticed same, I used to have this same trait, but now I'm more consciously aware of it. But um, you know, like saying, making the excuse of like that action piece. It's like they always have to have, it's great. I love having a manifestor around me or a generator, a mani gen, because that action piece sometimes I'm like, again, like I have
Hmm.
to do this action piece. And it's like that kind of pushes, into action. And I think that in business specifically, I see a lot of projectors not able to do that action piece because they're doing all of the other things. And then it's like they don't have enough of the energy to action. I mean, that's just what I notice in myself. And I also notice it in a lot of, you know, uh, other people too now, because I notice in myself first, right? That's how it usually goes. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think like the idea of wait for the invitation is so easy to take that way too. Like, you're like, okay, I'm learning about my design. Okay, I'm supposed to wait. But then like the whole other side of that coin is like, and as a projector, you're supposed to be honing some kind of a skill. Like you're supposed to be going all the way in
Right.
on the thing that you are a nerd about.
Right.
Like don't stop yourself from like sharing these things. That's how people know to invite you.
Right. Yes. And especially like when I started talking about, you know, I was always obsessed with astrology. And then that turned into what is human sign? And then looking at that and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not under that looks like too much. Like I'm not doing that. And then I'm like, projector, what is a projector? And I'm like, no, I'm not. What is that? What is that? I'm not a generator. Like looking at the types, I'm like, can I change this, please? You know? But
Mhm.
yeah, and then I realized it's like, people are like, oh God, she's going to talk to us about human design. But it's like, I feel like it's just a like awareness tool or a permission slip that I gave, that I gave myself that I'm like, oh, like this makes sense. When I was open and really like ready to accept it, of like, oh, okay. Because some people I've seen get very triggered by their human design charts of like, that's not me. I'm like, well, it is. It is you. Or did I put your information in wrong? Because maybe that's not you. So I think that that is, being able to see it from like a different lens, like the human design lens or astrology. Some people like astrology. And I think that, coming from your background, would you say that being an astrologer first and then kind of diving into human design gave you more of like an awareness on, you know, maybe how the, houses line up to the planets to like kind of like tying it all together for your own clients?
Yeah, there was a time when I was first doing human design readings where I would do it in tandem with astrology and kind of pull both charts together because
Oh,
I
okay.
really do find that valuable. But along the way, I don't know what it was. I had like a burnout moment with astrology and I kind of like took a break from it for a while. I was supposed to go to one of the big conferences in 2020 and it
Oh,
was 2020. And then
right.
we did it virtually and something about that really just like harmed me. And I just like was like, all right, I'm gonna take a break from this for a minute. I don't know what it was about that, but all that to say, I do still find astrology incredibly valuable, and I still use it almost every day. I'm not much of a transits person because I just am a being of chaos to just find out as I go along. But I use both when I'm looking at people's charts and trying to help people through something difficult in their lives.
Yeah. And I think the transit chart too is could be overwhelming at the time of like I usually only go to the transit chart if I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like what's going and then I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, okay, this makes sense. Or like I can now relate this to, this. Or it's like, why do I feel like I'm acting like a generator and I'm looking at the transits and I'm like, oh, my sacral is defined today. Okay. Like, and it's not like I plan my day like that, but it's like it helps to understand that when it comes to that. Because I'm like, why for the last 5 days I've been working like a generator, like like, and I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, okay, it's the transits. It's
Hmm.
attached to this, which is
Yeah.
nice because if I have to get shit done, it's like I'm getting shit done because I know what's getting ready to come is going to be a rest cycle.
That
Right?
makes me think of like, when I feel I'm chronically ill. I don't know if you know that or not, but when I feel my worst is when my spleen is defined via transit because the washing machine
Oh.
turns on, right? And it's like spitting out all the stuff I've been holding on to. But anytime I feel particularly bad and I open up the human design transits, I'm like, imagine that. My spleen's defined.
Yeah, yeah, that's so let's a little like let's talk about that because been a lot of other people too that some of the people that like my old mentor and a couple other people that I know that are going through a chronic illness. And
Hmm.
can you kind of speak about how it has been, or how it, I should say, how it showed up for you physically over time, or especially if somebody's listening to this, but like I have all of this and I'm, especially with sensitive people, what patterns do you see in yourself and or in, when you're reading charts with people that have chronic illnesses or just chronic burnout?
Hmm. Yeah, well, if I'm looking at someone's chart and we're talking chronic illness, I know I'm going to see one or all of the above, which would be undefined root, undefined sacral, undefined spleen. I have all three, so they get together and gang up on me to beat my ass. Um, because undefined sacral, this is not knowing when enough is enough, right? You just keep going and keep going and keep going. Undefined root, the shadow self of that is like you have a never-ending to-do list that's somehow also on fire. And you keep saying to yourself, just gonna do this and then I'll rest. I'm just gonna do this and then I'll rest. But the then I'll rest never shows up because everything feels like an emergency. There's so much pressure to get the things done. And then undefined spleen, which is very sensitive to outside input. And I know that when I was first working with, my spleen is fully open, so it's like super sensitive. It took me a long time to realize that I would pick up on other people's physical symptoms. So it would
Mm,
be like, I'm picking up on something, but I'm perceiving it as mine. And then undefined spleens can be a little bit of a hypochondriac, right? So then I'm like, oh my God, here's a new symptom to add to my, like, whatever. Here's something that's wrong with me today. And eventually I was like, oh, wait, every time I hang out with this person, I have this symptom. It's their symptom, you know? That was a
yeah,
really clarifying moment for me. But in terms of my own chronic illness, it started with, just a little bit of exhaustion creep, 15 years ago. Just a little bit of exhaustion, a little bit of a slow digestion system, nothing that I was like, this is a problem, right? I was like, okay, whatever. I'm working a lot. I'm in college. I'm eating like shit. It's fine.
yeah.
Over the last 15 years, it's kind of devolved further and further and further into this like inflammatory response that no one's been able to pin down doctor wise. Like I'll get this headache, I'll get super lightheaded, my whole face will get red and flushed. It mimics an allergic reaction, but I'm not allergic to anything. It's like just very clear signs when I've pushed my body too far.
Okay.
So that's been a journey. Yeah. It's gotten better over time as I've learned how to honor when my body asks me to slow down and to stop.
Yeah.
And I'm a mother of three, so like, there's only so much room I have to not do shit as a mother of three.
Right.
But
Right.
live, laugh, love.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, learning how to rest, learning how to actually give my body things that work for me in terms of like remedies. I'm a lot more, and most undefined and open spleens are a lot more on like the natural, holistic side of things. I have nothing against Western medicine. I just know that my personal body responds a lot more to natural
Right.
remedies. And I had
Yeah.
to learn that
Yeah.
because I was really trying to go the other way, especially because insurance only covers Western medication. So
Right.
I had to realize that actually I was at times making myself sicker with these things that people were telling me were definitely going to fix me.
Right.
And the undefined root, that one, you really think you have a handle on that one a lot of the time. It feels like you're getting that one under control. And then you realize, oh, wait, it's 3 in the morning. Why am I not asleep yet? Because I thought I needed to fold the laundry. It just sneaks up on you like that.
Oh
So,
yeah.
working with those three centers and trying to find balance and give myself grace for when I'm not living up to my own standards being very conditioned from childhood standards, and
Right.
noticing like when I get angry at myself, it's because I feel like I'm not doing it good enough. And the only reason I feel that way is because I grew up in a very restrictive environment where I could do nothing right? So it's just following that
Right.
thread until I get to that moment of grace to be like, oh, okay, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like listening to all of your stuff. I'm like, well, I have a undefined root. I have an undefined sacral.
Hmm, hmm.
And I mean, and I'm like, should I just diagnose my own self with a chronic illness? Not that I'm, like there has been times where I'm like, I've noticed my body more inflamed than not, or am I exhausted and just allowing my body to just be exhausted and like not carrying that weight, or like my neck, my shoulders, like my body just being tense when it's, trying, my body's like, hello, Lauren, hello, like, like we need attention. And I've had all this, like I had all of the tests, I've had all of the blood work, I had all of that, and I'm like, in the realm of like insurance, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, this is not telling me anything, like looking for answers. And I'm like, I
Hmm.
guess more like you said, definitely resonate with like the holistic side of it because it, last, was it last year? I was diagnosed with lipedema, like,
Me too. I just got diagnosed with
it
lipedema.
was
Look at
so it
us.
was so it was so hard, and I
Hmm.
realized, oh my goodness, that is again, like I remember being so small and having that tissue still in my body. Like you
Hmm.
could see it in my legs, and I'm like,
Yep.
well, I guess it doesn't matter about my weight because like it's like the actual tissue, and most people, and I got diagnosed really quickly with it, too, and it's like, how can I do this more, like alleviate the pain that I feel in my body? And it's like, not that I, claim, but I'm like, but that's all things that like have came up too, of like movement and looking at my chart and making sure there is type of movement, or like, am I not doing movement? Like I
Hmm.
feel like that movement is a huge part of my chart too, of like understanding that. So it's just like, I don't need anybody besides that diagnosis to kind of help with that. But it's like to get the surgery, and it's like, you're not, like it's nearly impossible to try to get the surgery too. Like there's, I have a lot of people that I'm connected to that have that are doing like awareness for it to help you get the surgery, but it's like next to nearly impossible, to get
Really?
they actually take the tissue out of your legs, arms, whatever, like whatever, but it's like anything to get it approved, it's like you have to do specific things and depending on like what it is for
Hmm.
you. So then I'm like, okay, so how do we do this where it's like my diet? Like how can I eat a less inflammatory? Am I always good with that? No. And my body reminds me of it when like I don't. But it's like the awareness of that, I think, is huge, and like bringing more awareness to that, like of speaking more about it, or you know, um the awareness period, I think is really, really important too. So,
Totally. I think that's so tough too because like lipedema fat, it does not go away once you
right.
have it. All you can
Yeah.
do is take preventative measures to like potentially not have more of it. I don't know.
Right.
I have a consultation for the surgery next month. I'll let you know
Oh,
how it
do you?
goes. Yeah.
Oh, yes. You will definitely have to let me know. Like you'll have to, yeah, like I started that process, and the way that they diagnosed me is they said I have lymphedema, which is different than
Oh,
lipedema.
right.
So my all of my records through all of that process have a wrong diagnosis on them. So they told me I have to
Ugh.
fix that first. And I was like, fuck this. I'm not doing
You're like, that was not my error. Why do I need to fix it?
Yeah. So basically, again, when I was going through the steps and all of that, I was like, you mean to tell me for 6 months I showed all of this stuff and like I did this, I did the pump, I did everything that I was supposed to do, and like the diagnosis from my doctor was written wrong with what the referral and like all of that because I'm like lymphedema. I'm like, no, it's I don't it's not lymphedema. Like there's a difference. Like I
Right,
knew that. And I was like, I'm not even a doctor. And look, I knew this. It's like lip, like it's actually the actual tissue.
right,
So like to have that surgery, what I've noticed, like they just take it out. However, that doesn't mean it won't come back because it can
right.
grow back. But it's
Hmm.
like if you just take some of it out, I mean, that's just some relief that like that part is you can always work on the preventative measure, but it's like how do you work on the preventative measure with it still in your body? Like I just don't
Right.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
mess. I
Yeah.
don't know if this is resonant for you. You can tell me, but I have theorized that I have lipedema in my body because of how much time I spent like restricting my own both physical movement and actual creative expression. That my literal fat just
Mm.
turned itself into immovable, like little balls. That's my experience of maybe why that's there on like a spiritual level, because I grew
Yeah.
up in a very, very traumatic situation. So
Yeah.
when I first learned that I was a manifester, I was like, yeah, I mean, I get it. I can see it
Yeah.
as someone who like spent my entire life feeling like my existence was really like too much for the people around me. And I grew up in a family fully of generators,
Oh,
five other
okay.
generators.
Oh, okay. That makes
One
sense.
manifesting generator, but yeah, who just like very much did not understand me and always wanted me to be quieter, just like, I used to get grounded for running up the stairs as a child. It was dumb shit. But yeah, like, so there's this
Oh,
part of me that's like, wow, I really like froze myself to the extent that my body got the message of like, okay, I guess we're just not going to move. So let's go ahead and turn into a statue. Because
yeah.
I started building up lipedema when I was like 16, I think.
Yeah. I thought mine was more of like cellulite, but realizing that like when you actually feel the tissue, it
Hmm.
feels like um what listeners like feeling this. Like it feels like really painful, like sometimes like what is the word? It's like those little things they put in packaging and then they're like little balls. Like that's what it
Oh,
feels
yeah,
like. And it's
yeah. Like
very
beads under
painful.
the skin.
Yeah, and that's like it feeling like very painful. However, it had nothing to do with like it had a lot to do with like being like, my weight or being overweight. And then I lost a whole bunch of weight and it's like, well, it's still there. Like it you can see it now because now I just have all this skin that's stuffed in this, like a stuffed in like a stuffed animal, like, at Build-A-Bear when you like the stuff. It's like all this loose, like, I'm like, okay, so like now what? So like yeah, so that's kind of like where I was like, okay, what is this? Like this doesn't feel normal. But yeah, I've been looking really into fascia too because like the
Hmm.
fascia holds that memory of
Yep.
like I think it's Jennifer Black. She's the creator of or she's the founder of the fascia blaster. And I
Mm.
was thinking, oh, and that like breaks it all up. And I'm like, well, if this is just like lymphedema tissue, I wonder if that will help with, might not help get rid of it all, but like I think preventative is the only solution, to having that tissue if anybody like has that tissue. But it's not like, yeah, mine started out with cellulite. Well, I thought it was cellulite until I
Right.
realized that isn't. So it's like I've been doing a lot of like, why did this turn into this? Or like, what is
Hmm.
this? Because I think spiritually, you're right. It has a lot to do with, I think, trauma that got is like stored in our body
Hmm.
that like had nowhere to go. So it just was like you said, well, I'm gonna attach here.
This is where
Now
I
it's
live forever.
and now I'm gonna stay in your body forever. Yeah.
What's
So
interesting too, from like a health perspective, is that every center in the human design body graph is associated with different body parts, different like minerals and stuff. Like you can get really quite deep with it. And I always think it's important to note that where you have defined or colored in centers, that doesn't mean that you can't ever be like in the shadow expression of that. Any center pushed too far can become illness. The body's going to respond. It's easier. You're more susceptible in your undefined or white centers. Um, but yeah, your defined centers can definitely be pushed to their extreme as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like for me, well, especially with yours or like even for mine, it's like that pressure. And especially coming from like somebody like my husband that has a defined root. I'm like that feeling of that pressure of like, my daughter also has an open root too. So like I get her like I'm just gonna do it on my own time in the realm of like, let's go to school, put your shoes on, let's go. Like, like
Hmm.
but it's like I can see where that I'm feeling under pressure or it's like I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough, of like constantly go, go, go to the point that my body is like, you're here today. You're not doing anything but
Yeah,
here.
sit down.
And it's like I can't physically move now. My body hurts.
Yep.
Yeah. So anybody listening to this, I was going to say, like, really look at your, because I feel like there's a lot of people right now, especially like entrepreneurs too, that are, and not entrepreneurs, they have these undiagnosed mental illnesses because, Western medicine can't diagnose you because, it's just going by this like symptom rule book. And
Especially if you're a woman.
yeah. And it's like,
Good
yeah,
luck.
yeah. And it's like, I don't need your rule book. This is how like, I just feel like, yes, we need Western medicine, but we also need that holistic side too, because it's like they work together and it's like then that could be the solution, not one versus the other. That's just in my
Absolutely.
opinion. Like that's I think what I'm seeing anyway. Especially
Absolutely. I mean, I think when we like develop things and go in new directions, it doesn't automatically mean the things that came before that are useless. I also
right.
think about like this is absolutely slight tangent, but like death work, right? And how back in the day that used to be women's work, mutual aid that women did for their communities. And then someone was like, "Oh, we could make money off of this. Let's do funeral homes. Let's do this. Let's do that."
Yeah.
And now home funerals where they're having a comeback now as they should, but like there was a whole period of time where we as a society became divorced from our ability to grieve.
Right.
We still have not recovered from that. We don't know how to hold that space and process it and let it move through our bodies anymore because we just have like lost that essential skill.
Right. Especially if you are working, like a 9 to 5 job or you have a side job and like you work, full time. It's like, I remember when I worked at my job that it was like you have like 3 days. Like if my mom or my dad or like somebody like I have 3 days and so I have to come back to work and like be a what? Like I never understood that. And I mean, like,
Mm,
I understand that there is a time period. I get it because, that's just the way that works. But I'm just like, this just goes to show how things are set up. Because it's like 3 days, like you lose your mom, you got to come back in 3 days. Like, how are you going to function as an employee? Like, how is
right,
that going to be like you're just supposed to be expected? So, yeah, I feel like that's shown in every um, system, structure, whatever you want to call it, in our society too, of like 3 days. And if it's just a, distant whatever, I remember it was like one day, and I'm like,
right.
you can't even get a funeral in one day. Like, right? Yeah, I think that is really, it really is, and especially what we're going through right now in today's society of like things just getting exposed, blown up, things are changing. It's like definitely I'm excited for the year of the fire horse. Like, I already feel like I'm experiencing all the things, but we're ready for change. Individuality, like I'm ready and I'm like really super excited. Also kind of nervous about this astrology that's going on, but like I'm like,
Hmm.
look, I did look at the transits and I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna all
Yeah.
feel this. And I'm like, let me make sure that I honor what my body is telling me.
Well, I think it's going to be tumultuous and probably scary, but
Yeah,
not only that, I mean, as we move toward 2027 and we're changing over to the Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix and things are
yeah,
going to be different. And I think, I mean, I live in Minneapolis, so we see
yeah,
here the very,
yeah.
telling, very obvious pillars of like things starting to roll in a direction that we can't like take back.
Right.
So things are changing and we are going to create something new together. And that is what it's going to be. And I think
Yeah.
it's going to be cool in the end, but like, dear God, we got to get there first.
I know we gotta get there and like collectively as like I'm just gonna say it, waking the fuck up, like of like what's actually been an illusion, what's actually been like this is, you know, it's like the control and division and all the things that I'm like, literally, I couldn't help myself but just make a video this week on like social media because I'm like, why is nobody talking about the division? Like,
Mhm.
of like what's happening and like what is being like, and of course there's a lot of people that, said it was like conditioning and stuff like that. But it's just like, but the awareness of it, of like, oh, maybe that one thing of like, oh, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how that keeps us controlled and how this and that. Like I think that that is really powerful. I have to say 2 seconds before I posted, I was like a little scared. Should I
Mm.
say this? That was obviously my own conditioning coming up of like, don't say it. You better not say it. And my defined throat was like, you better say it.
Listen, as a fifth line, someone's always going to be pissed off. Someone's always going to be pissed off. So you might as well just be like, you know what? I'm ready for that. Like 10 people that are going to be mad about this, but the rest of the people who are your people are always going to be able to hear you.
Right. Yeah. And it's like you said, the people that can hear it on your same frequency are going to hear it. The people that you want to hear it are never going to hear it. Not that you want them to hear it, but you can just scream in the mirror and scream at their face and they'll be like, "You don't know what you're talking about." Like it's just again frequency. Like
Yeah, like you could say something so common sense and like blatantly factual, and the people that are not for you are going to be like, fuck you.
or they want to debate. It's like
Right.
I'm not here for debate. Like I just love you, but goodbye. No. Like, have the day that you deserve.
Right. Like I am not the one.
Yes. Well, speaking about that, well, thank you so much for all of your wisdom and your courage about speaking about, all the things like, inflammation, exhaustion, your autoimmune flare-ups. And if anybody is listening and is like, okay, this is me, like I've been masking, I'm burnt out, my body is screaming, I'm not listening to it. What are like maybe like one or like 1 to 3, like one to three like little things that they can really start to get them to unmask safety without like blowing up their entire life?
Mm, good question. Well, I think the first thing I would do, if we all have something that we want to do that we're not doing for whatever reason, I would start by looking at that and identifying at least one barrier that's currently in your way and really digging into that. Like journal about it, pull cards about it, whatever it is that is supportive to you in your practice, but dig into the reason of why that's standing in your way. Because it's usually not like the first mental reason we come up with, right? Like, for example, I am not singing right now and I haven't been for a long time. And the obvious on the surface reason is my voice doesn't sound the way I want it to. I'm out of practice, right? But the underneath reason there, and the reason that I have a tremor right now, is because I spent too many years stopping myself from speaking. And I have to work through the grief that is built up around that. Yeah. So, whatever it is for you, dig into it and face the thing that wants to be faced. Let yourself feel the feeling there. The second thing I would do is become really familiar with your profile lines. This is how you're showing up in the world. This is a great guide to how you are energetically received by others. I'm a 3/5, so I'm received as essentially chaos incarnate. People find me very funny, but I can learn no other way than to fuck it up first. you know, and I it was really helpful for me to make peace with that because I was raised as a perfectionist. So I was essentially standing in my own way over and over and over again, being unwilling to make an error because of how it would make me feel to do that and be perceived. So get really comfortable with your profile lines. And then the third and final thing is I want you to take a look at your sacral center, you to start to learn and understand how your energy moves and shows up in this world and see if you can move the needle toward honoring that.
I love that. That's definitely a reminder for my own sacral center. Thank you for that. And my profile, I guess I should say my profiles too, of putting myself into hermit more with my 2 line and make honoring that so I can be more in my 6 line and not always like, feeling like I have to juggle both. So thank you so much. And thank you for this conversation. I think it was so powerful. And I think that while just listening, it's like I was even saying like, oh, I've been still masking some parts of my life and like my body is trying to communicate with me wherever that is and whatever that's saying and I'm not, as much as I'm more leaning into listening to that, I think I can still appreciate of honoring that more. So, thank you for that. That was definitely a reminder for myself. So, Kat, where can everybody find you and the work that you offer?
Oh yeah. Well, I show up most often on Instagram. You can also find me on TikTok. Handle in both places is cat period unfurled, cat dot unfurled. And you can also find me on Substack, and I believe we'll share the link for that in the show notes. But it's called Cats Unfurling. That's just who I am everywhere.
And yes, so if you make sure you go check out her links. So if you're watching this with us, or they'll be below in the description box. And if you are listening to wherever, just check below and you'll see all of that. And if you love this episode, I would like you to take a screenshot and share it maybe on your Instagram stories, maybe Facebook, and make sure you tag me at the Mermaid Light so I can repost and thank you personally. And if you want to dive deeper into this work with me, I invite you into the Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood, which is this community for sensitive, intuitive leaders who are ready to heal and rebuild their life and business that actually fits their energetic blueprint. Again, thank you so much for being here with me. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next week.
If today's episode spoke to you and you're ready to rise with support, I'd love to invite you in to the Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood, a sacred community for spiritual entrepreneurs to heal, grow, and lead with purpose. You can join us by using the link below in the show notes or connecting with me over on Facebook or Instagram at The Mermaid Light. If you loved today's episode, subscribe, share, and leave a review. This helps support us reach more women who are ready to rise. Remember, your journey isn't about fitting in. It's about embracing the truth of who you are. Until next time, stay inspired, stay aligned, and keep creating your extraordinary path. This is Lauren, and you've been listening to the Enlightened Misfits podcast.